it would have been retrogressive because we have a number of registered voters in Lusaka, and we have ever said that we have an adequate legal framework where the police would have been able to do that. So the fact that we had almost, it should be almost close to a month, where the ECZ had banned, where Lusaka, which is one of the highly contested places with the voters, we believe that that was regressive. But otherwise, we have been able to see a number of political parties talk about their manifesto, release their manifestos. Now, to come to the details about is it that they have been able to defend their manifestos, it is very unfortunate that most of these political parties have not been able to talk in depth about their manifestos. They focused more of their time on character assassination. We know of even people who are running political parties where the only thing that they do is to talk about their opponents. At this particular time, the Zambian people need solutions. The Zambian people are eager to hear about a number of things that affect them on a daily basis. And that is where they should have spent most of their energies. But we have seen a very retrogressive vice where they are spending most of their energies on things that don't matter.
You've talked about some of the political parties are releasing their manifestos, and you've talked about you are regretting that some have not explained in depth what they have released in their manifestos. Then, as an institute based or focusing on the research, then why are these political parties releasing manifestos if they cannot explain what is written in their manifestos?
Yeah. So if you look at it, it's one of the it's one of the things that they're doing at the time for campaign. They have not labored to ensure that they have structured programs where the vision is clear from the onset, and they are not having a clear vision. But at a time whereby, that's why we are saying most of them are panicking, because a manifesto within the time of 5 years, you can note that we have not heard of a political party just say, today we are going to discuss our manifesto. But it has only come at a time for elections. So for them, it is a strategic way of trying to wound weak voters. But what we are saying as an institute is that we need to have a structured way of doing things. We need to have a structured way of looking at the long-term developmental agenda of the country. Because if you are going to say that we are going to form government or want to defend our policies, they cannot only come at election time. What you stand for has to be there before the elections. In the particular 5 years, people by now should have been decided, because you should have started selling your manifestos all the time that you have been there in this particular five-year period. But what we are seeing now is that people want to make the manifestos, they want to release them, they want to sell them almost close to the election. That's why us who are more concerned about leadership, because we believe that leadership is the only thing that can develop. And people who are going to talk about leadership, there is a way in which they are going to do things. You are not going to release your manifestos days or months before the election. You are supposed to have your manifesto by now. Voters should be able to know that this is what this party stands for. On the issue of energy, this is what they stand for. On the issue of the economy, this is what they stand for. They should be able to buy in by now.
Now, if these political parties, they take time and they spend a lot. We've heard political parties assembling the cream de la cream of brains in this country just to sit and come up with a manifesto. Yes. They spend huge sums of money. Yes. They spend their time. They spend their energies. And why is it that they deprive the very Zambians, the very vote? Does it mean Zambia, they have realized and mastered the art to say Zambians are not good at reading? Because this is something that we've been told. Yeah. Zambians don't pay attention to what is written on a particular sector to say this is what this political party is promising. Can we say politicians in Zambia have mastered that art, and no wonder they don't take time to explain to voters, because when voting, Zambians have been accused of voting for a song.
Yeah. What you're saying is correct. They have been able to master
Now,
this.
what is your institution doing as an institute in order to correct that notion and demand that Zambians should know and understand what is written in the manifesto?
So what we are doing as an institute is that we have a program which we are working around with all the political parties on building the capacity of youths and women in political parties who are the majority, to ensure that they take their rightful places. There's underrepresentation even at structures within their political party. At national level, they are underrepresented. Even at parliament, they are underrepresented. At cabinet level, youths are underrepresented. So we have taken time to ensure that we talk with young people to tell them to look at you are not supposed to sit in the security wing of the political party. You need to sit in the decision making when they are talking about the manifestos, because if you are not sitting in where they are making policy, where they are going to decide how the party or the nation is going to be there, you are also not going to benefit from the policies. So we have taken time to talk about, to mentor young people from various political parties. A number of young people from across all these political parties have undergone our program in leadership. And this is one of the things that we are highlighting, to say you don't need to just be bundled in the security wing. You need to play a proactive role in your political parties. And you need to ensure that when you are playing that proactive role, you need to ensure that you understand your manifesto. And for you to understand your manifesto, you need to also be part of these brains that are making. Because some of the manifestos, why they are not making sense, is because some of them need to be homegrown. You need to ensure that you, apart from getting all these people you are talking there, the technocrats, they also need to get the local people. Because the local people are the ones with the local solutions. But what we see is people are just getting probably a manifesto from Ghana, a manifesto from the UK, they blend in and they try to make it. Those are things that cannot work. We need to have programs that are homegrown, programs that look at, that's why for us who are research-based, we want to understand the environment before we come up with a program. So that is what we are doing to ensure that youths and women actively participate and understand these manifestos.
Mr. Hakoola, in your preamble, you talked about the ban that was imposed on Lusaka, Nakonde, Mpulungu, as well as Namwala because of political violence. I know that political violence is something that we are going to talk about. But the Electoral Commission of Zambia advised political parties to find ways on how they are going to meet, the electorates. And we are aware that rallies were banned, road shows again were banned, and they were told door-to-door campaigns. Then we saw the numbers being reduced, that only 3 people are going to be allowed to conduct door-to-door campaigns. Also on, road shows, we are told only 3 vehicles were allowed. Other political parties are saying because of the restrictions, we don't have money to pay media houses in order for us to be featured, and that is why it has been very difficult to reach out to people and explain our manifestos. Your take on that?
Yeah, firstly, as an institute, our take has been that we have an adequate legal framework. We have the police that is supposed to look at the issue of violence. And our take is that we are supposed to look at the environment where we are operating. Zambia is a democratic country, and that has to live to the democratic tenets. And at a time when we are going to have elections, there are certain democratic practices that have to be maintained. And some of those practices are that people should have a right of assembly and association, which are enshrined in the Constitution. So political parties need to meet their members for them to come up to vote. So we have a situation, an environmental situation, where we already have COVID-19 as an impediment for people to reach out. Now, the second thing that we had the issue of political violence. So looking at this, political violence, there's a police that is supposed to deal with it. The framework is there. We have spent a number of colossal amounts of money to purchase surveillance equipment and a number of other things. A lot of things have been purchased to ensure that we have security in the country. We need to live up to ensure that those taxpayers' money that we have used are supposed to ensure that we uproot this political violence. Number 2 is that with the environmental problem that we have with this issue of COVID-19 and the fact that people need to participate in the electoral system, you cannot now bring in a ban. Now, you are going to bring in the issue of voter apathy. And for us, as an institute that is more subscribed on the issue of leadership, is we believe that leaders have to be chosen by the people and they have to test the leadership qualities. That's why we have members of parliament that go in the parliament and they can't even debate. We have councillors that are in the council chambers and they are not able to debate. So we need to interrogate these people. What kind of manifestos is it that they are going to have? So the Zambian people need to have an opportunity to hear from these people who are aspiring. That's when now they are going to make decisions. But if you are going to ban these campaigns, already you have all these other factors that are impeding on people's participation. We believe that that is not a move that would have been made in favoring the tenets of democracy that we have. We believe that they should have actually used the legal framework to deal with the issue of violence, and also they should have looked at other ways. In terms of reaching out, it's not every other person that is on social media. You find out the population of Zambia, it's not a number of them. There are a number of people who are in the rural areas. There are a number of people who don't have access to TV, and also people don't, they can't just gather at that particular time. They are off-peak or peak hours and so forth, where people are glued. They are doing a number of other things. So why we have campaigns is because people have to sell themselves to the people, and people have to buy in. So we believe that move by ECZ was not in the proper mechanism for us to do. We believe that there should have been better ways to handle that.
Mr. Hakoola, this year's elections are going to be held under the new normal, under an environment not witnessed before because of COVID-19. And because of this, we've been told that life has to be protected. And that is the reason why the Electoral Commission of Zambia came up with those, regulations or mechanisms. Let's talk about the campaigns themselves in regards to the restriction of COVID-19. Do you think the playing field has been leveled in terms of following the COVID-19 rules so that we protect lives? Come August, we don't lose people, but people turn up in numbers to go and vote for for the political party of their choice. Do you think under the COVID regulations, the playing field has been leveled?
For us as an institute, we believe that the playing field has not been leveled because of a number of factors. And as you are aware that there was an issue to say there are a number of issues whereby probably there's this issue now of distributing face masks and so forth, which came in because probably the ruling would have been distributing, and also the opposition wants to also distribute that. So what we have called on as an institute is that we have to have standard operating procedures in the way we are going to enforce the law, in the way we are going to do things. Failure to have standard operating procedures where we say this rule we have made, it can only encompass these people, but these other people, it cannot encompass. You can't have a fair playing field because each and everyone is a candidate. So as an institute, we believe that if we're going to make rules, let the rules be standardized for each and every one. Then we are going to ensure that we have standard operating procedures and standard rules that are going to level the playing field. But if we are going to come up with rules and say these rules don't apply to this person, they don't apply to this person, they don't apply to this person, then you are creating an area of unfairness in the way you are going to have participation, because other people are going to have access to meet the electorate. Other people will not have access. So for us to have a fair playing field, we need to have standard operating procedures. Whether this person, we're going to say, whether this person is meeting whatever you're going to say, let these rules apply. Then at that particular time, because we're in a campaign time, that is the only way we can have a way that we can have that's the only way we can have a fair playing field.
Mr. Hakoola, people have argued that our constitution, also if you look at the Public Order Act, the president is above because he has got immunity.
Yes.
And that is why the Zambia police even clarified to say, in our operations or enforcing the Public Order Act, we don't regulate what the president and the vice president are doing. But these other candidates, we regulate them. In a campaign period, as an institute, what are some of the proposals, or how would you like to see it? Because this issue will continue even after August elections. In 2026, it will be the same. People are saying it is because the presidency, not the president, but the presidency as an office, they have been given too much power. What are some of the proposals that, as an institute, you are embarking on to make sure that whether he is or she is a president, because of the state rules that we've put in place, in an election year, election period, things have to be fair. What are some of the proposals that you're bringing on the table?
Yeah, so one of the most important things is that as an institute, we respect the office of the president and also the office of the vice president. And we understand the constitutional connotation around that. Now, the thing that is there is that there is that high office has got a decorum and the way it's supposed to operate. So if you're going to say that you're going to open, probably you're going to commission something, you're going to commission it and come back. But if there are other activities that are done like that, where it is the way it operates, even when you go in modern democracies like America, whatever, it's like that. Even after there is a time where there is a president, even before the election, the president will still continue to be there. But for us, we believe that there is a way in which we are supposed to, there is a way in which we conduct ourselves at that particular time when we are going to have these other gatherings, so that we don't now start having all those kind of activities that are there. So even as we are going to talk about probably trying to curtail that, I don't think that we are able to do that in terms of saying, let's do that. But there are certain norms that are operated that are not supposed to even be regulated.
Where are we missing it as a nation, as Zambia?
Yeah.
You've given examples of successive democracy and other countries how it is being done. Where are we missing it as a country?
Where we are missing it as a country is that we have brought in a system whereby we're bringing in a number of people that are, what I can say is that we are supposed to get advice from people who are, one, the issue of patriotism is very much important as a country. We need to go back to the issue of patriotism. How are we going to be patriotic as a country? That is the cardinal thing. When someone is going to be patriotic about the country, we are going to have the correct frameworks that we are going to put in place. Because there are certain things that that office cannot do, because the people who are working there, they are diligent about it, and they are going to ensure that they do the correct thing, and they don't allow a situation whereby we're going to be even debating about certain things that are not supposed to be debated about. Because even in other civilized nations, this is an office that is respected. But if people are not going to be patriotic, they want to now bring that office in disrepute, then you're going to see these kind of things that are happening. Because there are certain things that are supposed to continue happening, even in the time of election. But there are certain things where you say, okay, this one, the way it has been conducted, it's not in a proper way that this office is supposed to conduct it. And there are people around there that are supposed to manage this. So those are the people who are supposed to show an exemplary behavior above board to ensure that certain things are not done in that way because of the office that you are dealing with.
You are a leader of the Continental Leadership Institute. Let's talk about the issues of violence. You did say, or you did mention in your submission, that you've been engaging young people in different political parties so that they become part of the decision-making bodies in their respective political parties. Issues of political violence has continued. Where are you missing it as an institute? Have you failed to train young people so that they realize and come to terms in knowing what their powers is and the contribution of a political party not being used as tools of violence?
Yeah. So as an institute, we have been engaging with political parties. We have been engaging with the police and also with the ECZ. We have actually been conducting stakeholder engagement meetings where we bring in the police, the ECZ, and the youths in political parties and find common solutions to the issue of violence. And suffice to mention that a number of things have come out from those stakeholder engagement meetings. And for us as an institute, the position is that the issue of political violence requires concerted efforts. It requires law enforcement to work above board. Working above board, it means that we don't have to show a favoritism to a certain political party, because this is an issue of the country. One of the things that has come out is that because of unfairness in terms of operating, this is one of the areas whereby we have the issue of violence. When law enforcement agencies are not protecting citizens, and citizens want to protect themselves, that is one of the causes of violence. Number two is that we expect responsibility from these leaders of these political parties and also their officials. When an official is found in the act of violence, they need to ensure that firstly, they suspend their officials. We have not heard of any political party, I don't know so far, that has said that in this time of campaign, on this time of electoral process, we have heard them suspending their members for political violence. We have not heard that. They are supposed to suspend. They're supposed to show that leadership to deter would-be offenders of violence. What happens is they hide, they shoot these members. In fact, in our engagement meetings, they say, if you beat someone, not using a kanjirapa, for now, uzaenda underground. Because izirankani, uzachoka. That is what they're telling them. Now, how are we going to deal with the issue of political violence if you're going to be shooting the perpetrators of violence? When you are doing violence, we are looking at public property. That is number one. Private property. We are also looking at the lives of people who are lost. Don't look at them as the cadres of political parties. Look at them as citizens. Look at them as the breadwinners. Look at them as the people who are human capital to the country that has to develop. Look at them in that angle. Then you're going to look at this matter in a different dimension. But there is a high level of responsibility where they are not really even denouncing them. Some of them, when their cadres are found in violence, they say, this is not our member. Which membership card do they have? When that person, if you're going to check probably from Facebook, the pictures, you discover that they are members. Probably they are there. They will be denying to say this is not our member. So the fight against political violence cannot end like that. We also need the fair play from the referee, who is ECZ. They need to be impartial in the way they are going to execute their duties. One of the serious causes of conflict in Africa has been mismanagement of elections. If you don't manage elections very well, you can cause conflict in a country and you can cause violence. So it requires concerted effort. And it also requires us, who are in civil society, to ensure that we reach out and we are impartial in the way we judge these issues of violence. We talk about violence, the ills of violence, regardless of who brings them on the table. We need to ensure that we do that. That's why as an institute, when violence happens, we talk about violence in impartiality and we say violence is bad and these are the effects. And also requires members in the community to ensure that this issue of violence, these violent people, they are at higher alert. Because when we move, because violence has got stages. As an institute, we have developed a peace building and non-violence manual where we have been talking about the issue of violence, stages, formation stage, propaganda issues, people are talking and everything. Number 2 stage, people now start grouping themselves together. After they group themselves together, the last stage now is a hostility stage. We have seen in other countries that I can give an example of. We saw what was just happening in our neighboring countries, that is South Africa. That is hostility stage now, when people now start breaking things. Now things are out of order. When you go to that stage, then we have a challenge as a country. We have a challenge. You have seen what happened in Rwanda, all those kind of things. Those are examples of the hostility stage of violence. And the economies never come back. If you look at even in South Africa, not going far, you look at what happened, probably this issue of looting and whatever happened when it reached the hostility level, you will find that those people probably, they want to work in the same shops that were broken. They will not even go there. They will find that it will take time for them to bring them back. So we have to safeguard this peace that we have enjoyed for 50 years and ensure that we don't reach the hostility stage. Because once we reach the hostility stage, it's very difficult for us to come back to normal. It takes years, it takes time. Because there will be issues of reconciliation, people would have died, and a number of things would have happened. So we need to safeguard this peace that we have enjoyed for 50 years.
You've talked about concerted efforts, and you've also lamented that some political parties disown members, their own members, when they are caught up in the act, and others being even shielding them or telling them what to do as investigations are ongoing. Do people benefit from political violence? So does political violence pay?
So what happens is that, unfortunately, what most of our political leaders have been doing is that they are taking advantage of these youths that are unemployed. They are taking advantage of these youths that probably are looking for solutions from them. And instead of them helping them, empowering them, that's why we believe in empowering young people to be in decision making. Because they are not in decision making, because they are not employed, because they have all these other challenges. They will just give them a bit of money and say, you attack this one. But it's not paying at the end of the day, because when they are found with an act, they are found with a challenge, they will not be, it's not a party that will be charged. It will be that individual standing in the dock by himself. So the issue of violence does not pay. It actually takes us backward because the number of things that are destroyed, there's life that is lost, and the number of things scattered. So the issue of violence does not pay.
Let's talk about, the leadership in these political parties. We did see this year two major political parties where even the Electoral Commission of Zambia have given us a report to say there are two political parties that are always violent, meaning the ruling Patriotic Front and the opposition UPND. Their leaders at Mulungushi, through the auspice of the Commonwealth and the Church, signed a peace pledge. Thereafter, when the ECZ were lifting the ban, campaigning in Lusaka, we did see again two political parties, the UPND and the PF, signing a peace accord. But again, violence has continued. As we are speaking today, the two who were killed in Kanyama were put to rest, even after signing this, peace accord. Where are we missing it? Does it mean our leaders have failed to walk the talk, or organizations like yours, where you are mentoring young people to become good leaders, have failed to inculcate the knowledge in young people so that they become responsible citizens not to involve themselves in political violence?
Yeah. So what happens is that we have noted that these leaders have signed a peace accord. And unfortunately, most of our political leaders, when they sign the peace accord, it ends at Mulungushi. The messages are not disseminated to the members. I'll give you a practical example. Is if you look at the top contenders, what messages are they having? Is the issue of violence among the top agenda among their campaign messages? Is the issue to say we are reaffirming our commitment, our social contract that we signed, the peace accord? Is it part of the agenda? If probably you go through their campaign messages for the past 10 days, probably peace is not among their top priority. So you don't expect people who sign a social contract and go and pack it in the shelves for people to follow that. What we expect from them is to continue inculcating the message of peace. We can only do so much. They need to continue doing the message of peace because they have got a huge following. They have got a number of people who follow them. People get them as role model, people get them as leaders. And even in a house, if you are going to talk to you every time you're telling your children to say, this thing, don't do it. This thing, don't do it. But what you discover is that they spend more time to breed that formation, to say, no, this person is like this, not talking about issues. They breed that time whereby people are talking about, probably they are talking about tribal talk, people are talking about this kind of thing. That is what they are spending their time on. And what you see from their members is reacting from the seed that they are planting, because they are planting something and people have to react. But if they are going to spend more, they are going to spend more of their time to talk about, we are reaffirm the peace accord that we signed and we need you to act in a certain way, then we are going to see a change of behavior. But if you're going to look at them, you look at their messages, you look at even the people who they give to campaign. If you're going to go to, you listen to their campaigns, whether virtual rallies, you listen to them. What kind of messages is it that they're going to reach out? It's messages of hate. It's messages that breed a ground of violence. So what we are expecting is a high level of responsibility from these leaders. But unfortunately, to us, they have been very disappointing. Very disappointing to us, because this is a peace that our forefathers, Kaunda, fought for, so hard to have. And we cannot have a leadership right now where people, instead of talking about peace, instead of talking about messages that are going to bring hope to the Zambian people and a generation like ours. But we don't see that. If you listen, just get one of the messages, whether from whoever, get it, listen to it even for a period of 30 minutes or 1 hour. If you hear anything to do about unity, to do about peace. So that is the ground we are operating on. But we need to go back to the foundation of the country, of one Zambia and one nation.
Now, as an institute, if you've noticed and you've noted those, politicians who are not having a message, who are busy championing tribal talks, or who are busy, opening their mouths, but they are not offering solutions, what is it that your institute is doing so that citizens, voters, begin to demand for solution? Because we have seen that citizens or voters are celebrating these people who are championing tribal talk, are celebrating these people who don't have a message for them why they should be voted for come August. They are busy clapping, jumping, and celebrating these people. What sort of program are you having as an institute to tell the citizens, say, no, this is wrong, but you need to demand this and this and this? Do you have such programs? If at all you have, how are you reaching out to people so that they begin to demand solutions and answers, not tribal talks?
Yeah, so the programs that we are having is, firstly, we have been having the stakeholder engagement meetings across the country, which I talked about. We also have the engagement meetings among just youth themselves in different political parties. And going further from that, we have developed a number of consensus among a number of political parties. And one of the things that we'll be doing as a long term is to ensure that we have issues of football tournaments that will be across political parties, and the issues of non-violence will be there. We also need to ensure that we are going to also be doing advocacy across the issue of a curriculum, where the issue of civic education doesn't have to be an issue of an option. It has to be an issue whereby it's a must, so that people can re-inculcate the issue of patriotism in them. Because if you are not going to learn patriotism from school, then it's now an issue whereby we're having a problem there. So some of those programs, so we are engaging with all these Ministry of Guidance and ensuring that they also play a role in ensuring that these messages come across. And for us as an institute, we have also played a role to ensure that we highlight these to the referee to say, you need to engage more on issues to do with peace. We need to engage more to do with issues of coming up together. We reach out, of course, through media and other programs, but we can only do so much. There is a need to ensure that the framework of the country is dealt with at a policy level. And that is why we need also the issue of government to come in and ensure that these things of patriotism are reinculcated in the country. One of the things why we're having this issue is because the issue of patriotism has been lost. The issue of patriotism has been eroded in our country.
As we are talking about the state of the nation ahead of the polls, you keep on talking about patriotism. And one who is watching, according to you, the definition and the way you understand, what is patriotism, and how do you expect Zambians to remain patriotic ahead of the polls? What is patriotism?
So patriotism, in simple terms, I can say it's a love for your country. That love you have for your country, the age to say, this is my country. You know, a long time ago, people would say, this is our property when someone is driving a GRZ vehicle. You understand? These days, you just pass in bumps, never bomb. You understand? So this is now we are saying we have lost that. But people are supposed to say, this is our property and we need to safeguard it. So we need to ensure that the love of the country is there. There are countries that have built their levels of love or patriotism to a level whereby anything that they want to do, they'll think about, say, this is the interest of the country. Even when someone wants to do something like violence, say, okay, what are we going to do? If we should have that love to say, this is our country. And if we look at other countries probably that have gone to war, countries that have probably been missed, you need to look at it to say, if we cannot go to that path where they are. If we're putting this love for our country, then we're going to safeguard our country. So that has been lost. We have this issue where people now want to use a country like, we can just say like it's a toilet paper, where you just use it and you just dump it and say, this is just Zambia. But that, if we are going to go, we are going to continue like that, then we are going to have no Zambia in future. But we need to reinculcate the issue of patriotism so that our country can be safeguarded.
You've talked about the referee in one of your submissions as we are discussing, that you've been reaching out or writing to the referee to be impartial. Elections are not just going to be done on the 12th of August. Elections are a process.
Yeah.
There's a lot that is involved.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the period so far with 8 days remaining. Are you satisfied with the conduct of the referee? If at all not, what are some of the areas that you are able to point out as an institute to say, here, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, kudos to them, they did a great job, but here they need to do more, even with 8 days that is remaining, you expect the referee to do ABCD?
Yeah, so as an institute, the ECZ, looking at the track record, they have been able to hold elections time and again. We have seen people from ruling opposition being able to ascend to the office of the presidents and other things. But however, there are a number of areas that we have also looked at and we have highlighted with the ECZ to say this is one of the ways or two of ways which you can do better. We are not saying they have done totally a wrong thing. We are saying they can do better. And one of the ways is right now we are having this process of accrediting of monitors. We have said, look, the best is to decentralize this process so that we can have as many citizens as possible who can have access to have this process done. And the issue of COVID-19, if you go to the civic center, you discover that people are packed there. They are following one another. If we are going to be responsible enough, we are going to ensure that people, we are going to enforce the COVID-19 protocols so that people we don't spread, because it can still be a breeding ground of having COVID. We believe that also the commission should have been more engaging. One of the things that brings anxiety among the members of the public is lack of access to information. We need to ensure that as we are heading to the polls, the ECZ should have been on every other talk show in the country. Ensure that they talk in different languages, explain the process, because we have had a new constitution, and after having a new constitution, processes have changed. People need to understand how these processes are. So we need to ensure that the ECZ should have been reaching out to a number of, they should have been reaching out to the citizens through a number of platforms. They should have been more engagement with even reaching out to the citizens. That is some of the areas that we think that they should be able to do and to work better. So stakeholder engagement, improving on it. Ensure that they disseminate information about the voting, ensure that they disseminate a number of information. That is very much important. So those are some of the areas that we believe that they are very much cardinal, but because lack of information brings anxiety, and also a number of processes, because sometimes people need to have as much information as possible. You can write a statement, post it on your Facebook page. It's not everyone who's on Facebook. We have always said that. You need to engage with the people. You need to ensure that you come on these platforms like this one. You come on a platform on a national TV. You come on a number of platforms to ensure that you engage on these processes. And as we are heading to the polls, to reaffirm to the Zambian people that you are going to deliver a credible election and that you are committed to what you are doing. That is what we need. And this is the message that the Zambians need like now, so that public trust and confidence is reaffirmed in them.
Printing of ballot papers was concluded last week, and right now as we speak, all ballot papers are in the country. But the last consignment, as it was arriving, it was discovered that there was another consignment which was not for the Electoral Commission of Zambia, that came with the chartered plane. And different stakeholders have added their voices to the development. Political parties are even suggesting that the Electoral Commission of Zambia should come out clean and explain how a plane which was chartered to deliver ballot papers also had some consignment. Your take on that?
Yeah, so as an institute, we believe that one of the key factors is to ensure that they hold responsible the airline, and also ECZ should be able to come out categorically clear about the number of issues that the stakeholders are raising. Because one of the things is that the contract bearers have a duty to ensure that they deliver just the ballot papers. And that in itself can bring a number of anxiety in the country. As you can see, there's a number of talk on just the issue of the other consignment that was done. So we needed to ensure that, I'm sure ECZ has sent people out there. They sent people out to ensure that these things, as they are being packaged and everything, they should have been a serious duty of responsibility to ensure that they do the correct thing. So like the way it is right now, we believe that they should be able to come out clean. Let them, as much as possible, engage with all these stakeholders.
As an institute, what are your demands, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, or the company that was hired to print ballot papers, on the issue of other elements being found with our ballot papers? What are some of the demands that you're putting on the table? Have you written the Electoral Commission of Zambia? If not, what are your plans?
So for us as an institute, one of the things that our demands firstly is that we believe that ECZ should be able to engage with the stakeholders on this particular issue. Let them engage with stakeholders. Let them have a stakeholder meeting on this matter, and let the resolution of the key stakeholders be the final resolution. So as an institute, we cannot come out categorically to say this is what we because we are part of the stakeholders. But what we demand is that this is something that can bring anarchy in the country, because of people are saying, okay, probably there are a lot of talks around that. So going forward, we believe that the contract bearers of this consignment did not live up their mandate. So they need to terminate the contract and ensure that these people are not able to be the ones to handle our cargo again, because they have acted out of irresponsibility, and you cannot continue. You need to be seen to take primitive action against those that are, if they are saying their hands are clean in everything that they are doing, what is the recourse for the Zambian people? We have to see action from them. And the action has to be, we need to terminate their contract, to say we cannot do business with you because this action that you have taken would have brought in a number of tension in the country. And you cannot have people who are irresponsible, because they know that this is an issue to do with an election. The decision of people have to decide about the country's affairs. And if people cannot live up to their constitutional obligations, there's no need to continue to use them for such things, because they have proved to be not responsible. So the first thing you should have told us is that we have talked to them, and going forward, there are a number of cargo planes that can come. We have terminated their contract, and we cannot do business, because that is a serious issue that goes to the root of the elections.
What started as speculations, we heard the army commander saying we are going to be on standby if need arises in order for us to help the Zambia police in beefing up security ahead of the polls. We are very much ready. And after the Kanyama incident, we have seen the head of state, President Edgar Lungu, deploying the military, the Zambia Army, Zambia National Service, and the Zambia Air Force. And the deployment of the soldiers has been received with mixed feelings. Others are saying now we are going to vote in fear. Others are saying we are not going to be free in this country because we are afraid of the combat, or the men and women in uniform. Others have described it as this is a good move. Life has to be protected. If the police have failed to curb political violence or to protect lives during campaigns, then let the soldiers help us. As an institute, how have you welcomed the decision that has been taken by the head of state of deploying soldiers to curb the political violence and protect life ahead of the polls?
So as an institute, we believe that leadership is at the center of development, and leadership is cardinal to ensure that every other area of Zambia is able to receive the best of development or the best of affairs. And for us as an institute, we believe that if we are going to have challenges in the way we are going to do, the police has got adequately trained men and women in uniform. We have got adequate material to deal with a number of issues of violence. So for us as an institute, we are not really of the view to say that the issue of, we know that the army are supposed to be used for other armies, the ZAF and the rest, they are supposed to be used for other operations. But the Homeland Security is a preserve of the police. So we need to ensure that we have top cream leadership to deal with this issue. It's not the first time we're having elections in this country. And it's for us, that's why we demand a high level of leadership responsibility. We have had elections passed in this country, and we have not had this kind of situation. So what is so sinister about this? So for us, we need to deal with leadership. Leadership has to be exhibited at the very highest level. It has to be exhibited by those in police to ensure that the correct thing is done. This whole thing, for us as an institute, we don't substitute leadership for nothing. If a person fails to do their duty, in this country we have not run out of human capital. We have not run out of people who can do the correct thing. That is what we believe in. So as an institute, we demand a high level of leadership to deal with these issues. Otherwise, we can deploy. We don't believe that it's even, for us, we believe that it's premature at this stage to even do that.
You've talked about leadership and failing. In this case, we have been told the Zambia police, clearly, they have failed the Zambian people when it comes to ending political violence. Then when you talk about leadership, where have we missed it?
Well, so what we are supposed to say is that who has failed at the police?
Can we say the police have failed?
The entire police has failed. We can't say that.
And so if the entire police has failed, don't you think it is high time that they needed a reinforcement and it can only come from the Zambia?
No, what we believe is that we need the performance, top performance from the officers that are there. Top performance from the office of the IG, top performance from the offices of the deputy IG and the rest of the people there. So if they are going to, they are not going to do their duty properly, then that's a challenge for us as a country. So we can talk about just bringing in the issue of the army. What we believe is that leadership has to be exhibited at that level, and if it's not exhibited at that level, then we have a challenge. Because we have the president came in the other time and talked about the issue of the performance contract for the IG to ensure that he ensures that he works on this issue to do with that. So those are the issues that we talk about, to ensure that the leadership has to be very strong to deal with these issues. That is what we are talking about. Leadership has to be very strong. But if we are going to say, probably if we are going to have an issue, we are not dealing with the issues properly, we are just going to say, no, let's bring in these people, let's bring in these people. As the people have earlier indicated, in an election when you are going to have people in combat, that brings anxiety, it brings fear on certain sections of, certain people might even not come out. It brings fear. There are certain people who are just afraid of those kind of uniforms. So those concerns are genuine. But in areas whereby people can still tolerate, even police, people are just afraid of having all these people. When police are just over-deployed, people have that. So we have had the issue of COVID-19. We have the issue of violence that also came in, and they brought in a participation of citizens to reduce. So if now we are going to bring in people in uniform to man the streets at the time of election, I can assure you that you are going to have serious voter apathy in this country, especially in areas of rural areas where people, they don't even understand what really happened. They just see police coming around. They just see the army coming around. People might even be afraid to come out to vote, and we might have a serious voter apathy. So we have to look at this thing in all angles, as in what is it that we have. We have people, the highest numbers of our people are illiterate. You go in the area like, you go in these rural areas, you deploy these people. Some of them will say, what is happening? It's a scheme or whatever. So there are a number of things that we have. There are a number of myths that are there.
Now that a decision has been taken, what is it that government or civil society organization and organization like yours can do to help that person in the rural setup not to be afraid come August 12th to wake up and go cast a vote, whether they will meet a military man or woman, they shouldn't be afraid. What is it that government can do, or what is it that civil society organization can do to demystify this notion that is in people right now?
Yeah, it's an issue of voter education, to tell them that these people...
Can it be done with 8 days remaining?
It's very impossible. It's very impossible. You can try to do, you can reach out to so many, but it's one of the things that he would not be able to reach as many people as possible. It's quite a mammoth task. So you can try to do that, but those are some of the fears that we have as an institute. Otherwise, people can still go out and try to demystify this, but it's something that's probably... Also, when you go with voter education, you go and talk to people. It's not that everyone will get you like a gospel truth. Others will think you're making tricks on them. There is so much that is there. So we need to also look at those other factors.
Mr. Hakoola, as we are coming to the end of the interview, let's talk about issues of accreditation. The Electoral Commission of Zambia right now is conducting, accreditation for would-be observers or monitors. The process has been marred with delays, lack of human resource or manpower. And an appeal was made by different stakeholders that the Electoral Commission of Zambia needed to extend the period it was extended by 3 days. It is coming to an end tomorrow. How do you describe the whole process of accreditation?
I think the process of accreditation, as we earlier put it, we spoke as TONSE, which is a network of youth organizations that composes 5 organizations, and our position has been that firstly, there has to be decentralization of the whole entire process. We can have different places, let them move it to the constituencies. We can't have all the people doing it at either civic center or at ECZ. Now you are going to now bring in all these people, and people already, the issue of decentralization is very much important, so that people can have, in their different centers, they can be attended to fast, and they are dealt with at a convenient time. So the issue of decentralization is very important. Then the number 2 thing is that we need to ensure that we have human resource. We have seen that these queues are very long, and when they are long, it's just that the demand is high and the human capital is low. So if the demand is high and human capital is low, we need to ensure that we increase the human resource, so that people are able to have access to some of these things. Monitoring elections is very much important, because it brings public trust in the process. It protects the rights of all participating stakeholders. And it also brings in the issue where citizens are going to accept the results. If there are no monitors to say, how are these things done, then you're going to have people who say, we don't even know about those results. So it's part of the integral process to have a free and fair election. And we need to ensure that we pay more attention to these things. We need to ensure that we pay attention to what the stakeholders are bringing on board. So all those things need to ensure that we deal with them. Otherwise, the process, the previous election, it has happened even a day before elections. That is what has happened. That has been the trend. Accreditation finished a day before the elections.
Are you proposing that they extend again, because the process is coming to an end tomorrow, but we've continued to see, long queues?
The process has to be extended. We have called for an extension, because the area precedent is that it has happened a day before the elections. And if people are going to talk about an election that is free and fair, they have to participate, they have to monitor. But if you don't have monitors in there, then you're going to have a lot of queries, and the public trust and the confidence will be eroded in the process.
In an event that it's not extended?
In an event that it's not extended, it undermines the attributes and the attributes that are needed to have a free and fair elections. Because one of the attributes is that we should be able to monitor elections, and we should be able to observe. It's actually a threat on the democratic process of the country, and it's actually a query already on the electoral system come after the elections. So we don't have to go that way. We have to ensure that we do the correct thing to protect the process. We have been a role model in Africa on the way we have handled a number of issues, and we don't have to remove our name on that map to ensure that we don't do the correct thing. So we need to ensure that we do the thing, and if we don't do that, the attributes will not be met that are needed for us to have a free and fair election.
Mr. Hakoola, many thanks for making an appearance on the special interview, and wishing you all the best as you continue to engage electorates and different stakeholders ahead of the polls.
I'm very glad to be here, and it has been a sound debate.
Thank you so much. Yeah. There you have it. This has been the special interview on your channel of choice, Muvi Television, and we've been looking at the state of the nation ahead of the polls, and I've been discussing or answering, helping me to answer a number of questions is Mundia Hakoola, who is the Executive Director of the Continental Leadership Institute. We continue to pray and encourage you that continue masking up, observing physical distance, sanitizing your hands or washing your hands regularly as we continue to count down to August 12th. 8 days only is the number that is remaining before Zambia decide. Continue to engage political party leaders as they are selling their manifesto and plans to you. My name is Kelvin Dabola, Chief Focal. Until next time, good night.